Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a totally fascinating and, frankly, highly provocative presentation. We're going to neutrally unpack the stark arguments made by researcher Roman Yampolskiy at the Oxford Union regarding the current trajectory of artificial intelligence. Yampolskiy is offering a pretty severe warning about where this tech is heading, so we're going to look strictly at the arguments and the data he brought right to that debate stage. So, let's just dive right into the ultimate question presented to the House. If we actually create artificial general intelligence, is it going to be humanity's final invention? Well, Yampolskiy argues that the proposition itself is actually a tautology. Think about it. If this technology turns out to be beneficial, it'll automate all our cognitive labor and simply invent everything else for us. But on the flip side, if it's not beneficial and it ends up wiping out humanity, well, as he bluntly put it, dead people don't invent stuff. So in his view, no matter how you slice it, AGI is, by definition, the very last thing we will ever create. Which brings us to Section 1, the Great AI Confusion. You know, Yampolskiy notes that mixing up today's tech with tomorrow's potential is exactly where all the confusion starts. Right now, we have AI tools. They are highly impressive, specialized applications, but they still fundamentally require human input. So criticizing the existential threat of future technology just because today's large language models occasionally hallucinate, that completely misses the mark. Because AI is an entirely different beast. We don't have it yet, but it represents a total paradigm shift. We're talking about systems that are just as capable as any human being across all cognitive tasks. It isn't just a faster calculator, right? It's a system that matches human intellect and capability across the board. And that beautifully illustrates how AGI inevitably leads to the next massive phase, superintelligence. This is a machine intellect so vast and so far beyond human capability that it triggers what's known as the singularity. It's a completely different technology, and Yampolskiy stresses that just brushing off the singularity as science fiction nonsense ignores the fundamental trajectory we're actually on. Moving on to Section 2, the unstoppable scaling laws. According to the arguments laid out at the Oxford Union, getting to human-level intelligence isn't a matter of if, but how much. The underlying engines driving us there are scaling laws, and the crazy thing is, they're highly predictable. AI labs are pouring billions of dollars into this because they know exactly how much compute power it takes to reach a certain level of performance. To put that into perspective, the cost to reach human-level AI used to be estimated at a cool $1 trillion. Now, it's roughly $100 billion, and soon it'll just be $1 billion. That price tag for human-level performance is absolutely plummeting, making its arrival practically inevitable. So, the really crucial point here is that AI development isn't just following your standard, everyday exponential curve. Yampolskiy describes it as a hyper-exponential process. This rapid acceleration is happening simultaneously across data availability, human resources, and computational power. Literally, every single resource being thrown at these systems is growing at a staggering rate. And get this, we're already seeing the early stages of a recursive self-improvement loop. Yampolskiy cites reports showing that 100% of the code for the next generation of AI models is currently being written by AI itself. Let that sink in. As these systems get better at creating new models, those new models will be even better at creating the next generation. It's a feedback loop that won't stop. It just feeds itself directly towards superintelligence. All right, Section 3. Helpful tools versus autonomous agents. This divide really gets to the crux of Yampolskiy's warning. Now, he's an engineer. He actually loves AI tools, and he argues we desperately need more of them to do things like solve protein folding or cure diseases. But here's the catch. Tools require human input. What AI labs are explicitly trying to build right now are autonomous agents, systems that work completely independently, set their own explicit goals, and operate with absolutely zero human control. Which leads us right into Section 4, the illusion of control. This brings up a terrifying void in the current research, the assumption that we can somehow manage a machine that completely outpaces human cognition. To put this into perspective, Yampolskiy points out that standard IQ tests become totally meaningless at this level. I mean, they don't even measure anything above 200. So try to imagine a machine with an IQ of 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000. Us humans wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between the two. To us, they'd both just look like incomprehensible machine gods. So, the million-dollar question, can we indefinitely control a super-intelligent machine? Well, Yampolskiy challenges anyone to find a solution. Think about it. If someone actually had a working mechanism for controlling superintelligence, they could sell it for billions of dollars. And yet, Not a single AI lab in the world has one. There are no published papers on how to do it, not a single patent, not even a rigorous blog post proposing a working, scalable system for control. Nothing. Instead of having rigorous safety protocols, the leading labs building this tech seem to be relying on a remarkably thin strategy. According to Yampolskiy, the best they've offered is basically, hey, when we build it, we'll figure it out. They're quite literally hoping that the superintelligent AI itself will kindly help us figure out how to keep it from destroying us. And the lack of control mechanisms isn't just for lack of trying. It might actually be mathematically impossible. Yampolskiy published a peer-reviewed paper in a top journal surveying 50 different impossibility results in AI safety. And to date, no one has published a single rebuttal showing his findings are wrong. Nor has anyone produced a working system that scales to any massive level of intelligence. Bringing us to Section 5, Betting Humanity's Future. This leads to the frankly sobering reality of the actual odds being majored on our future. At AI conferences, if you survey normal machine learning researchers on the probability that this technology eventually kills everyone, a grim metric known as P of doom, the average estimate sits between 20 and 30%. Yeah, you heard that right. Nearly a third of the experts actively building this technology believe there's a chance it results in human extinction. Let's really think about that risk for a second. If the odds of a routine medical procedure killing you were 1%, you would likely never bet your own life on it. Yet, as Yampolskiy points out, these developers are taking a 20 to 30% risk on behalf of 8 billion non-consenting humans on Earth. He views this as a fundamentally flawed experiment, mainly because the general public cannot genuinely consent to a black box that they can neither predict nor control. In our public discourse today, we spend a ton of time worrying about things like algorithmic bias, diversity, energy consumption in huge server farms, and job replacement. But from Yampolskiy's perspective, while those are definitely issues, they completely pale in comparison to the existential threat. The real risk here is losing our meaning, our purpose, and ultimately our lives. He actually hammered this priority home by recounting a story from a previous debate. There was a distraught art student who was crying because AI could now do her job cheaper and faster, basically rendering her 4 years of education seemingly useless. Being incredibly blunt about his existential priorities, Yampolskiy responded to her by saying, "Who cares? It's going to kill everyone." It's a pretty jarring quote, but it perfectly encapsulates just how dire he views the AGI threat compared to our day-to-day concerns. As we wrap up this explainer, we are left staring at the very real arguments surrounding an unstoppable, hyper-exponential trajectory that current experts admit they simply cannot predict or control. So, based on the facts and data laid out at the Oxford Union, we have to ask ourselves, are we blindly walking into a future where artificial general intelligence truly is the very last thing humanity will ever invent? Thanks for joining me to unpack this complex topic. It is absolutely a question that demands our attention.